Hiya, welcome to My Compound Life. This is a channel where we build assets, we build habits, and of course we build freedom, and that will hopefully be financial freedom for all of us. Thanks for watching. Before we progress along, any chance if you can hit the like, hit subscribe. I'm pretty low in my subscriber counts, so if you can subscribe, let me know in the comment who you are. That'll be really great. Okay, so this is a Bitcoin daily video. So we're gonna start talking about everything about Bitcoin. At present, the fear and greed index for Bitcoin is still at a fear situation. We're on 29 with the current Bitcoin price as at 90,300. Okay. Oh, let's have a recap. We are on the 11th of December. So from the time of recording, it's about 10 a.m. in the morning. So things are still in fear situation. And of course, I think in comparison to yesterday, things were slightly improved. Things were pretty positive yesterday, just before the Fed's meeting, where the fear and greed index was around 30. And as obviously you can see, post the Fed rate cut announcement, it certainly dropped a bit onto 29 right now. Let's quickly look through in terms of the Bitcoin ETF flow for yesterday. That's the 10th. So yesterday it was a positive inflow of 223 million. I think it's pretty positive in a way because in comparison to Tuesday, this number was, well, this inflow is definitely higher, from yesterday. For Tuesday, it was around 152 million, whereas Monday was actually an outflow, so a negative of $60 million. Okay. If we purely just look through weekly Bitcoin ETF so far, I think up until yesterday, so with 3 days worth of buying, specifically for this week, we are actually on a net inflow of 314 million USD. In comparison to last week, it was negative, so it was mainly outflow of approximately 87 million, so minus 87 million. Okay, so we are definitely seeing things are getting back, but of course it's not, the ETF buying is still not as big as before, the few weeks before the collapse or the huge liquidation event in October the 10th. Where the Bitcoin inflow was well over 2.5 billion USD per week, right? So the week on the 10th of October, that was about 2.71 billion. The week before that was about 3.24 billion, right? So in terms of market sentiment, we're not there yet. Right, so still plenty of runway before we can head back to 100,000 Bitcoin. And of course, let's quickly look through Ethereum ETF. Ethereum ETF for yesterday, it was actually positive, right? So 58 million for Ethereum inflow. That's for Wednesday. Tuesday, it was 177 million. And for the Monday, that was 35 million inflow, right? So I'm hoping that at least from an Ethereum perspective, it should all be positive inflow for this week versus last week, where last week I think it was predominantly outflow, except for the 3rd of December, which was the Wednesday. It has a pretty huge inflow of 140 million. However, it does seem most of it got wiped out for last week because there were definitely more outflow. So slightly better situation for Ethereum ETF. And let's take a quick look for Solana. Solana, yesterday they received a positive inflow of 5 million USD. Okay, so for Solana, again for this week, they're all positive. Yesterday was 4.9, the day before was 16.6 million. And on the Monday, it was actually a positive of $1.2 million dollars inflow, right? So hopefully we should have more confidence back in the market, despite the fact that the rate cut, it's not to an extent of expectation for a lot of investors. However, I do see some positive signs that are occurring for altcoins as opposed to Bitcoin, right? Yes, understand we mainly talk about Bitcoin in our channel. Right, so let's quickly look at some market news today. So yes, there has actually been some mixed crypto reaction after the Fed rate cut yesterday. So in the UK time, it's obviously last night at around, we know about it, around 7:30 p.m. or 8 p.m. As soon as Jerome Powell mentioned about the 25 basis point rate cut, so essentially this is the third rate cut for 2025, we can immediately see instantaneous Bitcoin pump, right? But I think it took some time, for investor to kind of translate the language. So I'll just jump into, what are some of the key points covered in the Fed's decision, right? So Fed cut rates by 25 basis point in, so this obviously is the third rate cut of 2025. Fed will consider extent and timing of additional adjustment. So I think that's kind of not bullish or bearish, kind of neutral. It's more of a wait and see stance. I think definitely with the previous government shutdown, they're still waiting for a lot more data to come in to make that strategic decision. But of course, the US Fed did mention the purchasing of the US Treasury bills on December the 12th, and buying back approximately $40 billion of the US Treasury bills in 30 days, right? So I think one thing for sure, a lot of people are assuming that this is the start of quantitative easing or money printing, right? So I need to clarify this. This is not at all QE, right? So this might as well just be kind of like a one-off buyback of T-bills, right? Because QE only happens in market dire straight situation, crisis or some sort, right? So until the real QE starts, until the real money printing starts, as I've mentioned a lot of times in all of my video, right? Unless we can see proper QE starts, Bitcoin and crypto will not pump. So Bitcoin, crypto, risk asset are all still at risk until the real QE starts, right? And to a certain extent, I still felt we might not really get into QE because, yes, the job losses data are huge. However, the fact that inflation will definitely creeps up, right? So it doesn't seem QE will start at any time soon, right? Because at 25 basis point rate cut, surely that will lead to more possible inflation, right? But at the same time, I think Fed also signals rate cuts may be done for now, right? So they might hinting that rate cuts will be stopped. So I think ever since with that announcement, it kind of spooked the market a little bit because immediately people decided, immediately you can see from the Bitcoin price, it gets sold off. We were at the high of 94,000, but mid of 94,000 USD. But look at us now. We ever since knowing that there may not be another rate cut coming anytime soon, I think there's a lot of expectation that there will be another one in January. Now, very likely we won't have one. So in that case, this will be pretty bearish for risk asset, especially Bitcoin. Okay. So in terms of Bitcoin slips as Fed's cautions tone limit gains. So I think that's the whole situation. I think yesterday's Fed announcement is not quite meeting the expectation of a lot of investors, right? They wanted risk on, right? So for the time being, with knowing that 4-year cycle ended for Bitcoin, with minimal rate cut of only 25 basis point, right? And knowing that there are no quantitative easing yet, because the money market are still performing. Look at the stocks market. Look, it does seem, and along with heaps of inflation about to creep up because of the 25 basis point rate cut, I think from the Fed's stance, quantitative easing might not be coming anytime soon. Okay, so from that sense, knowing that 4-year cycle already ended, hence Bitcoin is heading towards a bearish situation. That's what I need you guys to be aware of, right? Not to be overly bullish of the situation and take profit whenever you have the opportunities, right? But at the same time, I'm not really calling out by the dip right now, because a lot of influencers from social media are definitely calling everyone to buy the dips, right? Because they are thinking that the T-bill, the money printing to cover the T-bill of 40 billion that starts on the 12th of December, they're thinking that's the quantitative easing size, starting. But in reality, it's not. Okay, so be very careful, because at such volatile time, buying in Bitcoin, essentially, it's like catching a falling knife now, right? Because it's a huge percentage probability that we will eventually get into the bear market next year. And it does seem prices are dipping week on week, months on months towards that. Okay, so please be mindful of that. I still believe, have a strong conviction for Bitcoin, but buying of Bitcoin, unless you just want to buy and not look at your portfolio, you can easily just buy $50, £50, £25 or £30 a day, buy it and just lock it away, right? And not really look at your portfolio and look into your portfolio again in 5 years' time. Okay, that would be one of the strategy I think many adopts. However, if you really want to maximize your Bitcoin gain, I think the best time to enter will not be this time round, however, more towards end of next year. Okay. Looking at what's in the news, crypto and traditional finance leaders, they seem to be joining together for the CFTC Innovation Council in the US. So the US CFTC is bringing in together crypto and traditional finance executives in a new innovation council to help shape digital asset policy. Okay, so I think tightening regulatory dialogue will be taking place. However, this usually signals more clarified rules, and boost institutional confidence, right? Because more and more investments are actually coming from big institutions, coming from big banks, and now even smaller banks like what I've called out yesterday are offering Bitcoin and crypto for their customers, right? So I think it is bullish in a way for Bitcoin. It's bullish for Bitcoin, however, it's much more structural bullish as opposed to immediate price action bullish. Okay. One interesting news to call out, I think Ethereum shows bullish technical setup. So there has been a few analysts that are looking into the Ethereum price technical analysis. And it does seem that Ethereum is now testing a key resistance level and could potentially rally if it breaks that resistance level of 3,500. So at the time of recording, let me check, Ethereum price is at around 3,100. It did try to cross that 3,500 yesterday, however, obviously failed because I think Ethereum's peak at around $3,447 yesterday, right? So will this be kind of like the rally for Ethereum? Because usually Bitcoin peaks followed by Ethereum and followed by other altcoins. And it does seem that, obviously after the October the 10th incidents where Bitcoin peaked at around 126,000. And for now, it does seem Bitcoin will not get back to another all-time high anytime soon, and will gradually head down to the bear market. So, potentially, getting back to its 200 days average, right? So usually investors, I'm talking about the OG crypto investors, what they'll do, they'll sell off their Bitcoin and try to, maybe it's kind of like a revenge trade, or try to maximize their gain by diverting it into other altcoins, big caps first, right? So that would be like the Ethereum and Solana. So potentially, we can see some uplift rally for Ethereum and other big caps, altcoins like Solana, etc. But certainly, I don't foresee it forming all-time highs, right? So even for now, for me, because I obviously hold Bitcoin bags and other crypto bags. Very likely what I'll do, I'll have an exit plan to exit more of my Ethereum, more of my Solana, etc. I think that's the most sensible things to do, because we are definitely heading into a bearish situation, a bear market very, very soon in next year. And that's the time where you don't want to hold too much crypto, altcoins, or even Bitcoin, right? You want to be more liquid, you want to be more in cash, so that you can really capitalize in the next move up, right? So that's the opportunity for you, for me, for anyone to get in at the low and to buy at the low and sell high, maybe in the next 3 years' time when we get back into the bull market. Okay, so the overall market turn today, it's kind of mixed, cautious with leaning towards bearish. Yes, there's a rate cut of 25 basis point, but it's not enough. That's being shown in the market confidence for Bitcoin and Ethereum, because Bitcoin and Ethereum continue to be weak, right? Bitcoin continue to dip below 90K, and even Ethereum is under pressure. Although we are seeing, possible bounce back if we can, get over that $3,500 hurdle, right? In terms of macro influences, I don't think we will have any more bullish news from the Fed anymore. Again, calling out no money printing. That means no more all-time high, no more even a relief rally coming up anytime soon, right? So have that in mind. And don't even think of buying the dips now, because I think this does kind of signal, kind of a bigger signal that we might be heading into the bear market pretty soon. Okay, so sorry guys, not the best news that we all hope to hear, but it is what it is. Thanks for watching, and please hit the like, hit subscribe, become my subscriber, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you. Bye.